Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading back, way back to the high Middle Ages. We're going to peel back the layers on really one of the most important books in math history.
You're talking about the Liber Abaci, the Book of Calculation.
Exactly. And its author, Leonardo Pisano, though, we all know him better as Fibonacci.
Right. And to really get why this book was such a bombshell, you kind of have to picture the world he was living in. Leonardo's working in Pisa. This is around, 1170 to past 1240, turn of the 13th century.
Yeah, and it wasn't exactly a quiet, scholarly time, was it?
Not at all. I mean, it was this incredibly intense, competitive environment.
Furious, I think you called it before. You've got the Crusades shaping politics, you've got Emperor Frederick II, and the Pope constantly at odds.
And maybe the biggest factor for Fibonacci himself, just cutthroat trade rivalries. Pisa, Genoa, Venice, Amalfi. These places were maritime superpowers, literally fighting for control of the Mediterranean trade routes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in that kind of world, where trade is, well, everything, they desperately needed a better way to calculate, faster, more accurate.
For sure. The old Roman numerals, maybe using an abacus. Fine for small sums, maybe. But for complex international business, forget it. Just wasn't cutting it.
Which brings us to our mission today. We're diving into the Liber Abaci. First edition pops up in 1202, then he revises it in 1228. And this book, it wasn't just another math text.
No, it was more like a declaration of war on the old ways of calculating.
Yeah, and we're here to give you the essential guide, kind of a shortcut, to understanding why this massive book was so critical, really, for setting up modern life. Okay, so let's start with the big picture, what Leonardo actually said he wanted to do in the preface. It was pretty revolutionary for 13th century Europe, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. His stated goal was to introduce the, what he called the Hindu number system, basically the digits 0 through 9 that we use every single day, and how to calculate with them, bringing that to the Italian people.
You have to stress how radical that was back then.
Totally. We just take place value and zero completely for granted now. But imagine you're a merchant back then. You're used to Roman numerals, maybe fiddling with an abacus or counting on your fingers.
Right.
And suddenly, here's this system where you can just write down huge numbers and, manipulate them directly on the page. It's a total paradigm shift.
And what's really amazing is the book didn't stop there. It wasn't just, here are the new numbers, folks.
No, it ballooned into this encyclopedic work. It basically covered, almost all the known math of the 13th century. Arithmetic, sure, but also algebra, tons of problem-solving techniques.
And you mentioned rigor before we started. That seems really key here.
It absolutely is. For me, that's crucial. He wasn't just teaching quick tricks, for the marketplace. He knew this new Hindu-Arabic system faced pushback.
From who? The guys using the abacus.
Exactly. The established masters, they were powerful. So Fibonacci knew he needed more than just speed. He needed philosophical backup. So he grounded his methods in Euclidean geometry. Solid proofs.
Hang on, that seems counterintuitive. If he's writing for traders who need fast answers on, say, exchange rates, why bog them down with abstract geometric proofs? Why did the quality of the math matter so much?
Because the old guard, the abacus masters, they could dismiss the new system, call it unreliable, maybe even black magic, So Leonardo uses Euclid, I mean, that's the gold standard of mathematical certainty, right, to prove that this Hindu-Arabic system wasn't just faster, it was logically sound, rock solid. He was showing that the math itself was good regardless of the new symbols.
He was legitimizing it using the most respected tradition available.
Precisely. He's making innovation respectable.
That really changes how you see the book. It's not just instructions, it's an argument, a defense.
Definitely.
Okay, let's get into some of the famous stuff. Anyone who's heard of Fibonacci knows about chapter 12.
Right, the rabbit problem. That's the one that generates the Fibonacci sequence, the thing named after him. It's kind of the mathematical hook, the famous part.
Mathematical marketing, yeah.
Yeah. But beyond the sequence, he had other cool things in there, like these divination problems.
Divination? What, like fortune-telling with numbers?
Sort of. They were basically mathematical puzzles. You'd start with an unknown number, do a bunch of operations on it, and then the challenge was to figure out the original number just from the result.
How on earth do they solve those without, algebra as we know it?
Well, they often use modular arithmetic. Sounds fancy, but it's just math focused on remainders, like clock arithmetic, right? After 12 hours, you're back where you started.
Okay.
By using the properties of division and remainders, you could actually work backwards and find the hidden number. It was another way to show off the power of this new calculating system.
But for the merchants, the really practical, day-to-day, useful bit must have been this method he called
El Contame.
El-Qatayim,
Right.
the method of double false position. That seems like pure genius for its time, a shortcut for solving linear equations.
That's exactly what it was. It's all based on proportion, on linear extrapolation. And the beauty is you didn't need formal algebra.
How did it work?
You'd basically guess two different answers to your problem knowing they were probably wrong.
Okay, 2 guesses.
Then you'd see how wrong each guess was. And using the size of those errors, you could proportionally figure out the actual correct answer.
Wow. So a merchant trying to figure out, I don't know, the exact cost of something with complicated taxes or profit margins?
Yeah.
Instead of getting lost in the calculation.
Yeah, they just make two reasonable but wrong guesses. Look at the errors, and boom, those errors point directly to the right number. It's incredibly clever.
And the problems in the book weren't just theoretical exercises then.
Oh, not at all. They were intensely practical, real-world stuff. How to calculate expenses and profits when partners travel together, how to sort out complicated inheritances involving different kinds of money, even like the economics of buying and selling horses. Stuff merchants dealt with daily.
Let's talk about that money aspect. Because medieval currency, it wasn't simple like ours.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
A complete mess. No decimals. You had pounds, shillings, which they called soldi and pence or denarii, and the relationships weren't straightforward.
Like how many soldi in a pound?
Usually 20, and then maybe 12 denarii in a soldo. It varied. So adding things up was a nightmare. Leonardo showed how to use the new system, right? Pounds under pounds, soldi under soldi, denarii under denarii. Keep the columns straight.
And you'd constantly be converting between them.
All the time. Say your denarii column added up to, I don't know, 73. You had to figure out, okay, that's 6 soldi because 6 times 12 is 72, with 1 denarii left over. Then you'd carry those 6 soldi over to the soldi column. And this wasn't just for local currency. Merchants dealt with Byzantine bezants, gold ounces, Genoan turini. Liber Abaci basically standardized how to handle this calculation headache using the new numerals.
Which leads us nicely into probably the most crucial tool for international trade back then, the universal rule. Rule of 3, some called it.
Yes, that was the absolute workhorse. This is where Fibonacci really demonstrated that the Hindu-Arabic system could crush the old methods when it came to trade negotiations. It solved proportional problems.
How did you set it up?
Simple table. 4 spots for 4 numbers in proportion. Usually like amount of merchandise, its price, another amount of merchandise, and the unknown price you need to find.
And the key was lining things up correctly.
Absolutely critical. Pounds under pounds, ounces under ounces, whatever the unit was. You had to keep matching quantities aligned vertically.
And the actual calculation. It's famous for being elegant.
It really is. You just multiply the 2 numbers that are diagonally across from each other in the table.
Okay.
Then you take that product and divide it by the 3rd number, the one that's left over, and that gives you the 4th unknown number.
Simple multiplication and division.
Exactly. But here's the thing. It wasn't just a handy trick. It was based directly on a solid Euclidean geometric principle that in any 4 proportional quantities, the product of the middle 2 equals the product of the outer 2.
So again, Fibonacci's giving the merchant the fast answer.
Right.
But he's also implicitly saying, and trust me, this is mathematically sound, based on ancient Greek wisdom.
That's the brilliance. It covered everything merchants needed. Selling goods by weight, handling taxes or currency exchange rates, selling stuff measured in lengths like canes or bales of cloth.
And crucially, converting between all the different weight systems used in different cities. Venice might use 100 weight, Genoa another.
Exactly. The universal rule made these complex international calculations manageable, accessible. It was the ultimate business math tool of its day.
Okay, let's circle back a bit to the actual mechanics of the Indo-Arabic system he was teaching. Things we barely think about, like borrowing and subtraction. He had to actually explain that.
Oh, yeah. Think about subtracting, say, 92 from 380. If you're used to an abacus moving beads around, the idea of borrowing from the next column makes no sense.
Right, there's nothing to borrow from.
So Leonardo had to spell it out. You can't take 2 from 0 in the ones place. So you conceptually add 10 to that 0, making it 10, then subtract the 2. But then, crucially, you have to pay back that borrowed 1 by adding it to the 9 in the tens place of the number you're subtracting before you subtract the tens.
It sounds so basic now, but you can see how revolutionary it was. Suddenly, complex subtraction could be done quickly, on paper.
Right, not by physically moving counters. It changed everything for arithmetic speed and accuracy.
What about fractions? They must have been a headache, too.
Huge headache. He covered reducing fractions to a common denominator, which again seems obvious to us, but was a necessary step for complex division he needed to teach.
But you mentioned something unique, composed fractions.
Yes, that's interesting. It comes out of the Arabic mathematical tradition he studied. They're
Yeah.
basically, well, they look like fractions written inside other fractions, but what they often represented was breaking a number down into a product of its factors. For a merchant dealing with, say, dividing goods, seeing a number represented this way could be a quick visual cue about its prime factors, making division easier to manage.
Speaking of factors, he went really deep into number theory, didn't he? With this universal rule for finding the composition of odd numbers. That sounds like figuring out if a number is prime.
It is. That's exactly what it is, a systematic way to find the factors of large numbers or determine if they're prime. And this was presented as a practical tool.
How did it work? And why would a merchant need it?
Well, the method was pretty sophisticated. First, check easy stuff like divisibility by 5. Then he used a technique called casting out nines. It's related to modular arithmetic to check for divisibility by 3.
Okay.
If those didn't work, you start trial division with primes, 7, 11, 13, and so on. But, and this is the clever part, you only need to check primes up to the square root of the number you're testing.
But why? Why bother?
Think about dividing profits or goods. If you have a large, awkward number of items, say 1,137 units of something, and you need to divide it among partners, knowing its factors quickly, in this case 3 by 379, tells you if it's easily divisible or if you're going to have awkward remainders and potential arguments.
Fair division, quality control, and distribution.
Exactly. Knowing the factors was vital for efficiency. And this whole systematic process of checking residues, honestly, it anticipates the core ideas of number theory developed by Gauss centuries later. It's really quite advanced for the 1200s.
Amazing. So he's covered arithmetic, factors. Where does algebra start creeping in?
It's woven into the more advanced problem sets. He had sections on what he called company problems, partnership scenarios.
Right, dividing profits based on investment.
Precisely. And often the first step was complex. You had to convert everyone's investment, which might be in different currencies or forms, into one common unit, like soldi, before you could even start calculating the proportional shares. That's already pre-algebraic thinking.
And then you mentioned alloy problems. Those sound complicated?
They were. Imagine mixing different types of money, maybe coins with different amounts of silver and copper, to create a new batch of coins with a very specific silver content.
Okay, like a medieval chemistry problem using money.
Kind of. Merchants needed to figure out unknown quantities, how much of each input coin to use. They'd often solve these using that El Chatem method, the double false position, or just straightforward proportional reasoning.
But without using X and Y.
Right. They didn't have modern symbols. They'd refer to the unknown quantities simply as the thing, res in Latin, or maybe the part. But the underlying logic, it was algebra. The concepts were there, just expressed differently.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing,
Yeah.
Liber Abaci was way more than just, hey, everyone, use these new numbers.
Oh, vastly more. It wasn't just teaching the Hindu-Arabic numerals, though that was huge. It was about systematizing math for practical use. It brought together Greek geometry for proofs, Arabic algebra concepts, and Hindu arithmetic methods into one coherent, massive textbook.
A bridge between tradition.
Exactly. And it laid down the conceptual foundation for how people would use mathematics in commerce and later in science for basically the next 500 years. It was the blueprint.
So Leonardo Pisano, Fibonacci, he hands them the keys. The mathematical tools needed for the explosion of commerce and eventually for modern science, all wrapped up in a book that a reasonably educated merchant could actually use.
They put in the work, yes.
Which leaves a pretty provocative thought for you listening. If that 13th century merchant had to master things like complex factoring rules, the weirdness of borrowing for the first time, and that elegant universal rule just to keep their business afloat in international trade, what modern, maybe less obvious foundational shortcut to being well-informed, what essential tool or way of thinking might you be overlooking today? Something important to chew on.
Definitely something to think about.
And that's our deep dive into the truly revolutionary world of Fibonacci's Liber Abaci.